Dr. Justin King, who's going to talk to us about how he engages and assesses large classes in engineering. That's a topic close to many people's hearts who come in and say, but I have a class off, how do I do it? So that could be great.
Yeah, thanks very much. Thanks to Jay for the invitation here today as well. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about teaching large class sizes in engineering. So keeping students engaged throughout the semester and how to assess large class sizes. So the context of this is that in Ireland, most engineering programs start with one common year. So there's several different types of engineering, civil, mechanical, electronic, and so on. Whereas in Trinity, we have a common first year and second year program. And so this is a good thing in some ways because it gives undecided students more time to figure out what kind of engineering they like. But it can also be a bit of an issue because students who have already decided what they want, then they get upset about relevant, so-called irrelevant modules. And unfortunately, the module I teach, electronics, is one such irrelevant module, according to some of the students anyway. So just a brief overview of the module. So it's a second year electronics cohort is about 250 students. The delivery, I'd say, is fairly standard. It's 3 lectures and 1 tutorial per week. And then we have 2 lab sessions throughout the semester. We'd like to have more, but with 250 students, it's kind of hard to get through cohort that size in a small lab. So in terms of the format and how I deliver this, so typically what students look for is they want all notes with all solutions and all examples included. But what I actually give them, they get notes containing all the theoretical content. So for the first lecture, they get everything uploaded PDF to Blackboard, and they get all the theoretical content. So you can see an example of that here. This is the theory section of the course. And all the examples are left blank. So students must come to the lecture and fill the examples in during the lecture. So this is an example of that. So this is one of the examples, and there's a blank space there, and I present the example text in the lecture, and they can fill in the rest of it. So I think there's a genuine question here is why actually do it this way when the objective is to teach students? Why not just give them the material? And I think one of the benefits of doing it this way is that it helps students engage in the lecture, it gives them something to focus on. I think writing down the solutions at least once in the lecture encourages students to think about what they're doing. Typically when I get questions, I don't get too many questions in a class of this size, but when you do get questions, it's usually about the examples because they're actually thinking about it because they're writing it down, and not so much about the theory section when we go through that. So these are the positive parts of doing it this way, but there's also some drawbacks, which is, for many reasons, students might not be able to attend a lecture and they've missed content. It obviously slows down delivery. In engineering, you have lots of diagrams to take down. This can take quite a bit of time. And I think times are changing, right? So I think students generally want all content and they often get all content. And if you're the only one not giving them all the content, that can lead to some issues. So there's kind of pros and cons here. So I was trying to think of a compromise to this. So I came up with this idea that since I recorded a lot of content in 2020, why not use that content somehow? And so rather than just recording every lecture and have 50 minutes of lecture for students to sit through, I kind of cut the lectures up into these small videos of just the examples. So these are typically usually about 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 minutes long. And so I put these up on Blackboard, available for the students, but there's a slight twist to it. So rather than just being able to access all the videos, they could access the first set of videos from the first day, but then to access the rest of them, they had to answer some questions based on chapter 1. Okay, so once they answer those questions, then chapter 2 is unlocked, they get more videos, and then they get questions on those videos. And then this continues on throughout the semester. And so I'm sure some of you use this adaptive release method before. So you just on Blackboard, you can use this to release content once they completed a quiz or something like that. So the format of these questions, it's quite simple. It doesn't take them too long, but it just forces them to engage before you move on to the next set of videos. So the format is MCQ. You can just see an example of it here. They have different So each student will get different numbers here, and they have a different set of answers as well. So they can't just talk to their friends to get the solution. They have to actually go through the videos and figure this out for themselves. So then I just took some assessment of student engagement with this method. So there was about 232 active students, as I call it, in the module. So this is some students, who actually show up to things. There's not only about 250, but about 230 will actually show up to exams and so on. So that was the number I took for this. 98% of these attempted the first MCQ, and 64% completed all MCQs. So then I just took a little graph of how this works. So the blue here is the students who attempted that set of MCQs. So there's 11 chapters in the module in total, and each of these chapters contains three short videos, about three. So it doesn't take them too long. But as you can see, the blue column here is the students who attempted those videos, and the red is the students who completed it and got the correct answers and moved on to the next set. So I was reasonably satisfied that 64 sat through all those videos and watched all those videos. So I asked students for some feedback then on this method. What do they think of this? And one was, can you just release the building version of the notes? So you always get a bit of feedback like that. All lectures should be recorded and uploaded online. So I thought maybe shorter videos, 10-minute sections would be good, rather than a 50-minute lecture. But obviously some students would prefer everything. But there was a lot of positive feedback. So a lot of students kind of like this method. So they said the videos of examples were highly helpful, and it's kind of interesting. They said it was their main source of understanding and learning. I like the video examples and MCQs for each chapter. The fact that they aren't included in the notes makes me actually do the work. It's kind of nice to see. So some interesting benefits of this as well. So obviously some students would use this to catch up. That was kind of the main idea. But some students also worked ahead several weeks. So I saw some students in the first week had to log into Blackboard. You can see if they moved on to chapter 10 in a week or two. So it's kind of nice that you have this option for those students who want to do that, I guess. And it's nice that you can sort of ensure that they understand the material before they move on. That's kind of a nice thing. But it's very easy to move on and watch some of the later videos without actually understanding them. But at least this way they can have some level of certainty that they've engaged with the material before they look at the more difficult content. So yeah, between the lecture notes and the videos, all content was available from the beginning. So the feedback for this was, I found the videos examples very helpful. They allowed me to go through the course content at my own pace and make sure I understood everything. Okay, so this was one method. I also looked, just if you actually look at Panopto, so I uploaded the videos to Blackboard, but Panopto is what stores the videos. So I call this scary Panopto metrics because the amount of information you can see is kind of disturbing. So it gives you very detailed analytics on viewership. So this is the overall stats. So there's about 30 videos in total. And from the 250 students, there was nearly 10,000 views, 242 unique users, and 43,000 minutes. That's nearly 30 days of watching content across all the students. So it's just kind of interesting to see. They did actually engage with it quite a bit. You can see things like the top viewed videos. So it's kind of interesting here. We might expect the first example, obviously it's going to be quite well viewed, but it was just interesting to see that one of the later examples was very well viewed. So, I might suggest maybe this particular part of the course is a little bit more complicated or difficult or whatever, and you could focus on that maybe a bit more the next time. And you can see details like the top student user. So one student viewed 105 videos. So there's only 30, so they obviously viewed them several times. Panopto gives you the names of these students, by the way, so it's very detailed, kind of lives up to its name, I think. So you can see the different analytics here, student 2, student 3, and so on. So then another thing I tried, some of you have probably seen this, that we have access to this in-class polling software, Webbox, which is quite good. So you can kind of do things, useful things. I just mentioned this in case some of you haven't seen it. You can kind of do surveys, things like this that might have been hard to figure out beforehand. You can just do a survey with students in class and ask them Ask them here what kind of engineering do they want to do at the end of this year and so on. And you can ask them again when you're finished to see how many you've lost over the semester.
Many are doing electronics.
Yes, quite a few are doing electronics. And this one here contains quite a few different. There's electronic, computer, and computer together. But it's just kind of useful to be able to get access to this information live in the lecture. I kind of use it for interesting things as well, like assessing understanding of prerequisite material. So in the first lecture, I gave the student this problem. So this is electronics 101, right? This is something they should know from first year. And this is the correct answer, right? The top one. But 70% of them got it wrong. And I wasn't surprised by that in some ways, because it takes a little bit of time. It's kind of a slightly trick question. But I think this is kind of feedback for me, but also feedback for them, right? It kind of shows them that you probably need to revise some of this. It's kind of nice just to show them that you can show these results live in the lecture. And there's lots of different types of questions you can ask. This is a numerical one where you can see what they can type in a number and you can see all the different answers, and they got this one right, so not doing too bad on this one. And then I just thought it was kind of interesting to see how they engaged with this throughout the semester. It kind of started off well, but I'd say as time went on, it didn't quite interest them as much. So I call this kind of poll fatigue. Like you can even sense this in the lecture when I put up another question, and kind of like, okay, do we really need to answer another poll? So I don't know, there might be some way of trying to make it more interesting, or maybe limit the number of polls that I ask. Okay, so just the final section then is in-class assessment. So in 2023, the students were twice assessed via an in-class test. So obviously, with a class of this size, it's kind of hard to do this. So, it can be hard to assess them via a formal exam this way. There's no real facility, I don't think, as far as I'm aware from the college, for secure computer-based assessment of a class of this size. It would be nice to have that. I think I hear some talk about it happening, but you kind of need lockdown computers and so on to do it properly, so they can only access Blackboard, etc. So you can try and do it yourself. It can be hard to find an exam style venue for a class of 250. So, by exam style, I mean they're kind of separated out, and see each other's work and so on. And obviously there's the marking to consider as well if you actually want to do a proper exam. So one approach I took to this was just to assess during the regular lecture, so just in a usual room. The format again is this Blackboard MCQ. So students completed the exam using their phone. So you can do an MCQ reasonably okay. They have pen and paper to work out the results, and they can do this on their phone. So how do you combat cheating? So again, I use this kind of MCQ with random numbers. So they all get different values. So at least if they're looking over their shoulder, they will see another student with different numbers and a different set of answers. So a little bit hard to do that kind of cheating. This is an example. So all the different values here, each student will have different numbers here, and all the answers will be different for each student as well. So you kind of also need it to be well invigilated, because you are giving students access to the internet during the exam, which apparently goes against everything I was taught to do. But given the random nature, I thought it was reasonable. Right? You just need to check and make sure, try not to let people, even if they do communicate with each other, it's hard to do this correctly, especially if you time the exam correctly. Right? So if you don't give them too much time to start talking to each other and things like that, it's not perfect, but it is one approach that it seemed to work, I think, reasonably well. Obviously, there's some problems with this, so you're very much dependent on the technology working here. So one of the students forgets to bring or charge their phone. Wi-Fi issues, they can't connect to Blackboard. So people might have 250 students in the lecture expecting an exam just to work, and it's a stressful time for students as well. So it was kind of stressful for me a little bit, just hoping that this worked. But interestingly, like in a class of 250, only about 10 of these issues arose. So only 10 of them forgot their phone or forgot to charge it, etc. So it actually worked okay. And I had some spare printed copies of the MCQ just in case this happened, that I could hand out to students. So it's kind of sort of try and mitigate these potential issues a little bit. Now, there was some anecdotal usage of ChatGPT. I heard students mention this, that some students have tried to use ChatGPT during the exam. We didn't see any of it, but did hear some talk of this. So I tried this myself actually just to see would it work. I don't think last year it could accept images, ChatGPT, but now it can. Students can copy and paste images into ChatGPT, and I just did this and asked it to find the solution here. So it's kind of interesting. It figures out all these numbers, gets them all correct, and then goes through a method. The method is totally wrong, by the way, so it gets the method completely incorrect. But somehow, I guess the answer incorrect, but then it somehow gets the right answer at the end. It kind of figures out that maybe it knows this isn't one of the options. And so I think it goes with the closest one. So I don't think that would always work, but at the same time, probably not too far off that working quite well. So for obvious reasons, I probably won't repeat this method next year. There's kind of a choice here, I think, between online cheating versus looking over your shoulder cheating. So one way is that it takes a bit of effort, but you can generate obviously 2 or 3 written MCQ papers and hand them out alternately to students to try and stop them looking at each other, their neighbours and so on. It's not ideal, there's a bit of extra effort involved in that, of course. And one of the nice benefits of the Blackboard method was just saving paper. There's 250 students, and it was just kind of nice not to have a huge reams of paper being used for this. It's less than twice, so that would have done a lot. So the feedback from this was quite good actually. They like this kind of continuous assessment, like the MCQ test are a good way of assessing, and the continuous assessment forces you to learn as you go. Okay, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff.